Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
It was a Tuesday, gray and damp the way early spring in Ohio sometimes still clings to the bones like a bad memory, and I had just finished a 9-hour shift juggling phone calls, last-minute reschedules, and a waiting room full of people who had all clearly decided that patience was optional today. I wasn't expecting a parade or cake or even flowers, hell. I wasn't even hoping for much, but I did expect a damn text. Something simple. Something like, "Happy birthday, honey." Instead, I walked through the front door of my quiet apartment, kicked off my flats that had started to rub raw on the back of my heels, and stared at my phone one more time just to make sure I hadn't missed a message. Nothing. Not even a missed call. Just an ad from Kohl's and a group text from my office's Lunch Buddies thread, which had devolved into a debate over whether ranch dressing counted as a valid pizza topping. It was 4:42 p.m., and my mother, Janice, had once again forgotten my birthday. Again. Not that she would admit to it. She'd claim she was giving me space or thought I was busy, but let's be honest. If my name wasn't attached to some obligation or guilt trip, she didn't exactly trip over herself to remember it. I sat down on the couch, still in my work clothes, and looked around my apartment like it might give me some sort of reassurance. The bookshelves were neat, the plants still alive somehow, and there was a stack of birthday cards from old coworkers and friends I barely spoke to anymore still taped to the wall from last year because I hadn't bothered to take them down. At least someone had remembered me once. This wasn't the first year Janice had forgotten. She'd done it 2 years ago, too, and then again the year before last, each time brushing it off with that same tight-lipped smile and that famous line, "Oh honey, grown-ups don't need gifts." You're not 10 anymore. No, Mom, I'm not 10. I'm 42, divorced, and still apparently living in the shadow of my younger brother, Josh, who somehow never hears that grown-ups don't need gifts. I remember being 10, though. I remember blowing out candles on a cake my grandma made while Janice scrolled through a catalog and told me to make a wish that didn't involve a puppy. She said puppies were too messy. Josh got a puppy when he turned 11. A golden retriever. Named him Ranger. I got a bathrobe with embroidered initials and a passive-aggressive comment about being a big girl now. Josh is 7 years younger than me, 35 now. He's always been the golden boy, the family favorite, the one who could forget your birthday and still have people thank him for calling. Mom practically spins gold out of his laundry, and Dad, well, Dad doesn't say much anymore unless it's about lawn maintenance or carburetors. The last time he said something genuine to me was probably in 2012, when he told me that marrying Tom was a mistake and then toasted us anyway. But I digress. I sat there, that Tuesday evening, holding my phone in one hand and a pint of cherry vanilla in the other, wondering how the hell I'd become the woman who keeps hoping for something different every year and getting the same damn outcome. My thumb hovered over the message app. Should I say something? Should I pretend I don't care? At 6:13, I cracked. I texted Mom. "Hey, just checking in. Hope everything's okay." Her reply came 2 hours later. "All good. Long day. Love you." No mention of the date. No mention of me. I stared at the message for a solid 5 minutes, then threw the phone face down on the coffee table. I didn't cry. That would have made her too important. Instead, I opened a fresh Word doc on my laptop and started typing. It began like this. On the day I turned 42, my mother forgot I existed. The next few days were the kind of foggy numb I've learned to accept as part of adulthood. Work, traffic, Netflix, maybe a frozen burrito if I'm feeling fancy. I ignored her calls the next day, though she didn't leave a voicemail. I ignored Dad too. Not that he called. Josh posted on Instagram that he was going to be celebrating early this year. His birthday's not for another 3 weeks. Figures. Then came Sunday. The usual dinner ritual at my parents' place. I showed up because it felt easier than explaining why I didn't. Janice was wearing her hostess apron that she only puts on for guests, even though we're not guests, and Dad was already 3 beers deep into his recliner sermon on how men don't know how to fix things anymore. Josh was late, as always. But when he pulled up, I saw it. A brand new, cherry red Yamaha sports bike gleaming in the driveway like some overgrown toy. He was wearing a stupid leather jacket, too, like he was auditioning for a knockoff version of Sons of Anarchy. Mom squealed when she saw him. "Oh my God, look at you. Doesn't he look amazing?" she said, turning to me like I was supposed to clap. I didn't clap. I didn't speak. I just stood there on the porch, watching Dad help Josh wheel the bike closer to the garage, all proud and puffed up like a rooster. "Got it for him," he said, slapping the seat like it was a hunting dog. "Happy early birthday, kiddo." I looked at Mom. She was beaming. And in that moment, it wasn't about the damn bike. It wasn't even about the birthday. It was about something much older, much colder, and much heavier than a missed celebration. It was about finally realizing I had been optional to them for years. Disposable, really. The afterthought daughter. So I smiled. And I started planning. I didn't say a word that Sunday evening, even though every cell in my body screamed at me to stand up and flip the damn table. I watched them, the three of them, fussing over Josh like he'd cured cancer or rescued a family from a burning building, while I stood there in my old Navy cardigan, holding a bowl of store-bought potato salad no one even bothered to open. Josh was going on about the specs of his brand new sports bike, something about torque and cylinders and horsepower, which may as well have been Latin for all I cared, while Dad nodded like he was hearing gospel. And Mom hovered nearby like he was about to receive a congressional medal. I smiled, though. That fake kind of smile you make when you're one bad comment away from losing it completely, but you still don't want to give anyone the satisfaction. They laughed and clapped each other on the back, all warmth and approval and effortless affection, like it cost them nothing to give, because it did cost them nothing, as long as it wasn't going to me. I sat down at the kitchen island and watched them through the pass-through window. My plate sat in front of me, untouched. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, a limp-side salad, Mom's usual when she didn't feel like trying. No candles. No cards. Not even a leftover piece of Josh's early birthday cake, which I saw in the trash with one clean corner left untouched. That night, I drove home in silence, hands clenched tight on the steering wheel, watching the dotted white lines blur into a long stretch of nothing. I didn't cry. I told myself that tears were for people who still held out hope. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, pulled my old journal out from the back of the closet, and started flipping through the pages like I was flipping through the autopsy of my childhood. There were lists in there, actual lists, of every time I got forgotten. Age 12, soccer championship, they missed it. Age 15, birthday party canceled last minute because Josh had the flu. Age 22, college graduation, they showed up late and left early. There were notes about things I never said aloud, about how Josh got a truck for his 17th birthday while I had to buy my first car with student loans and 3 part-time jobs. There were words scribbled in red ink, rage, silence, forgotten again, and whole pages where I had underlined the same sentence over and over. I don't matter to them unless they need something. And they did need things from me. Always had. Babysitting, errands, emotional cleanup. I was the one who calmed Dad down after his knee surgery tantrums. I was the one who helped Mom write her eulogy for her sister's funeral. I was the one who paid the phone bill that winter when their heater broke and the bank account dipped below zero. But none of that bought me a phone call on my birthday. You know, they've forgotten my birthday 3 years in a row now. Wait, no 4. No, hold on. 2019, 2021, and 2023. That's 5 years, right? I don't know. Math was never my thing. Maybe someone in the comments can correct me. Not that it matters. The number just keeps growing like mold on a ceiling you're too tired to clean. The following Sunday, I brought it up. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the way Josh mentioned that he was probably gonna take a little vacation with the bike and Dad offered him gas money before the sentence even ended. Maybe it was just the look on Mom's face when she smiled at him, warm and proud and alive in a way she's never looked at me, not once. Not even when I got promoted last year or when I paid off my mortgage 2 years early. So I said it. "Hey, Mom," I said, my voice too calm, too measured. "You know you forgot my birthday, right?" The silence was instant. You could have heard a fork drop. Josh looked up from his phone, blinking like I'd just spoken in tongues. Dad coughed into his hand. "Mom?" She laughed. That light, dismissive chuckle that tells you she's about to say something patronizing enough to make you wish you'd never opened your mouth. "Oh, come on, Carly," she said, waving her hand like she was brushing away a fly. "You're too old to care about birthdays. Seriously, you're 40-something. It's not like you're 8. I just stared at her. That sentence. That one damn sentence. It hit me in the chest like a shovel. Too old to care. Too old to want to be seen. Too old to expect even the smallest gesture of human decency. I looked at her face, those eyes that once checked my forehead for fevers and now barely glanced at me unless I was offering to clean the kitchen. And I realized I wasn't even angry. I was done. I stood up, slowly. My chair scraped against the tile floor, sharp and loud. "You know what?" I said, still calm, still measured. "I might be too old to care about birthdays, but I'm not too old to care about respect." They stared at me like I'd just slapped them. Maybe I had. Maybe the truth slaps louder than a palm ever could. I reached for my coat, picked up my purse, and didn't even look back. "Where are you going?" Mom asked, her voice higher now, brittle at the edges. "I'm going," I said, turning at the door, "because if I stay, I'll say things that won't be forgiven." And right before I closed it behind me, I added, "You're going to miss me when I'm gone." Then I left. No one followed. The first time I ignored one of my mother's calls, it felt more like a mistake than a decision, like maybe I was just too tired, or too distracted, or caught in the middle of something that couldn't wait. But when the second call came in and I stared at her name glowing on the screen without lifting a finger, I knew I had crossed an invisible line. And it felt peaceful. Not freeing, not dramatic, just quietly peaceful, like the kind of silence that follows after you finally shut off a dripping faucet that's kept you up for years. I didn't plan to go no contact. That makes it sound too clean, like it was strategic or woke or part of some 7-step self-care plan. It wasn't. It was something that just happened, slowly at first, like most breakages do. I stopped answering. I stopped initiating. I stopped pretending I was okay with being an afterthought. And when Thanksgiving came around and I didn't show up, no explanation, no call, nothing, it wasn't met with rage. It was met with confusion. "Where are you?" Mom texted me that morning. "Dinner at 3. Don't forget the green beans." As if I was still her helper, her little errand runner, her reliable, replaceable daughter. I didn't reply. And for the first time in decades, I had a quiet holiday, just me, a rotisserie chicken, and a bottle of red that didn't require small talk or dodging microaggressions wrapped in corn casserole. It wasn't joyful, but it wasn't miserable either. It was real. By Christmas, I had blocked her number entirely. Dad's too. Josh got the same treatment a week later, though not before he sent me a photo of the bike with a caption that read, "She's a beast. Got her up to 140 on Route 10. You gotta come ride sometime." No context, no question about where I'd gone. Just another snapshot of his self-inflated life, like I was some side character watching from the bleachers. I blocked him right after that. Didn't say goodbye. The messages started pouring in through Facebook next. Long, winding paragraphs laced with religious scripture and half-remembered childhood moments that Mom used like weapons, twisted into evidence that I was somehow breaking the family apart. She reminded me of my baptism, of that summer I cried when I lost my favorite stuffed bear, of the way I used to sing, "You Are My Sunshine" off-key in the back seat. It was manipulative and cloying and utterly transparent. I read every word. I didn't reply. Eventually, she started leaving public comments on old photos, on my work profile, even on the yoga studio page I liked 6 years ago. "We're still your family, Carly." "God doesn't believe in silence," she wrote once beneath a post about community breathing classes. Another time, she quoted Corinthians. Another time, she said I was cold-hearted like her father's side. That one made me laugh out loud. I'd forgotten she used to say the same thing about her sister after every holiday fight. I finally started therapy in January. My friend Claire had given me the name months earlier, after I made a joke at brunch about maybe faking my own death and seeing who actually showed up to the funeral. The therapist, Diane, was in her late 50s, wore glasses too big for her face, and had a voice like gravel wrapped in honey. She didn't nod too much, didn't smile when she didn't mean it, and never once asked, "But have you tried telling them how you feel?" like some wide-eyed rookie with a counseling degree and zero lived experience. After 3 sessions, Diane said something that cracked me open like a damn eggshell. "Love without boundaries," she said, "is just self-destruction in a prettier dress." And it landed in me like a truth I'd been running from for over 4 decades. Because that was the thing, my family had never really loved me in the way that counted. They loved what I did, what I offered, what I represented. The functional daughter. The support beam. The one who showed up even when it hurt. But me? Carly? The person? They didn't even know her. And I wasn't sure I wanted them to anymore. Still, the silence did something unexpected. It didn't shrink them. It made them loud. Louder than ever. Janice started calling my office line. She left voicemails that started calm and ended in tears, or worse, that brittle anger she always used when her control slipped through her fingers. "You're being selfish," she said once. "You don't just disappear like this. That's not what families do." I wanted to scream into the receiver. "You disappeared from me first, but I didn't." I just deleted the message and scheduled another session with Diane. But they didn't stop. By April, they had roped an extended family, cousins I hadn't spoken to since Grandma's funeral, aunts who still sent me Christmas cards with the wrong zip code. One of them, Aunt Mel, even called my building's leasing office to check on me because Carly's always been the sensitive one. That almost made me cave. Almost. Then one Wednesday morning, right as I was finishing a presentation for my department's Q2 goals, I heard the front desk buzz my line. "Hey, Carly," the receptionist whispered into the phone, her voice tight with unease. "There's someone here asking for you. She says she's your mother." My stomach flipped. I stepped into the lobby 15 minutes later, and there she was, Janice, standing in her oversized raincoat even though the forecast was clear, clutching her purse like it held her last shred of dignity. Her eyes were red. Her cheeks blotchy. She was crying. In public. In front of my boss's office. In front of strangers. The same woman who once told me to get it together at a funeral was now unraveling in corporate beige carpet, like some fragile ghost of the mother she used to pretend to be. And in that moment, I didn't feel sorry. I didn't feel guilty. I felt something even worse. Nothing. She was already crying before I even got to the lobby, her small frame shaking just enough to draw the eyes of everyone within a 10-foot radius, like some tragic sculpture misplaced in the middle of corporate life. My coworkers, all of them mid-email or mid-latte, looked up with that same half-curious, half-annoyed expression people get when personal drama barges into professional space. Janice clutched her purse with both hands like it might float her out of the shame, and when she saw me, her face crumpled into something between relief and performance. I could tell she hadn't expected it to be this public. But she wanted it public. That's how she's always worked. Shame wrapped in sentiment. "Carly," she said, her voice cracking as she took a step forward, "can we please talk?" I didn't answer her right away, not because I needed time to think, but because I was still taking in the sight of her standing there, mascara trailing, throat trembling, in a building she had probably never thought she'd need to walk into. For a second, I thought about turning around and pretending I didn't hear my name, but something in me said, no, you walk through this. You finish what you started. I motioned toward the glass doors without saying a word, already aware that half the marketing team had their faces pressed against the frosted partition, watching like it was some afternoon soap opera. Outside, the wind was biting even for April, and Janice followed me silently until we reached the edge of the building where the cigarette smokers used to gather. There was nothing glamorous about the moment, nothing cathartic. Just a mother standing in the cold trying to find the words that might glue a fractured daughter back together. I didn't come here to fight, she started, her voice now lower, trying to pull itself together. I don't know what else to do. I crossed my arms, not out of defiance, but because it felt like the only way to keep myself from unraveling. Then maybe you should have done something before now, I said, calmly, firmly. Her eyes watered again, as if shocked that I wasn't melting into forgiveness on the sidewalk. I'm sorry, Carly, she said. I know I've made mistakes, but I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought you were okay. You always seemed okay. I laughed then, not the warm kind, but the kind that bubbles up when the absurdity finally becomes too much to carry quietly. You didn't forget my birthday, I said slowly, making sure every word hit its mark. You forgot me. That stopped her. Just for a breath. Like maybe for the first time, she realized that her version of events wasn't the only one that existed. That my silence hadn't been an overreaction, but a response to years of being made invisible by people who claimed to love me. She reached for my arm, a soft touch, a familiar gesture. I stepped back. I'm not ready to do this, I said, and turned to go. She called my name, once, softly. But I didn't turn around. 2 days later, I got a call from Aunt Mel, my unofficial family informant, who somehow always knew the gossip before the dust even settled. Her voice was tight, unsure if she was supposed to be telling me this, but too curious to stay quiet. They changed the wills, she said. No greeting. Everything's going to Josh now. The house, the accounts, even the lake property. Your name isn't on anything. I didn't respond. Not even a sigh. Carly, she continued, voice lower now, they're saying you told them to cut you out. That you wanted nothing to do with them. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the same fridge magnets I'd had since my first apartment, and realized something that should have devastated me didn't even sting. Being cut out of something I was never really part of? That wasn't betrayal. That was just paperwork catching up with reality. 3 days later, Josh totaled the bike. He wasn't hurt, just a sprained wrist and a few bruised ribs, but the Yamaha, twisted beyond recognition, smashed up on the side of Route 10, bent in places that steel wasn't meant to bend. Apparently he was going over the limit, showing off for someone he had just met, and lost control coming out of a wide turn. Of course, Mom posted about it immediately. So grateful my baby is okay. God was watching. Not one word about the recklessness. No mention of responsibility. I read the post. I screenshotted it. And then, for the first time in months, I sent them a message. It was a photo. Just one. My hand holding the key to my brand new car. Not a gift from anyone else, not some surprise from a doting partner or generous family member, but a vehicle I had saved up for quietly while they were busy gifting motorcycles and rewriting inheritance plans. A sleek, black hybrid SUV that would get me anywhere I wanted without a single ounce of guilt dragging behind me. Attached to the image was a message. Just one line. Turns out grown-ups do like gifts. We just don't like bullshit. I hit send. Blocked them again. Closed the phone. And for the first time in what felt like decades, I smiled, not out of pettiness or spite, but because I had finally stopped asking people to love me who only knew how to love what I gave them. I gave myself something instead. Something they could never take, reassign, or forget. Me. It was one of those heavy, gray afternoons that feel like the sky itself is holding its breath, like the world is pausing before something it knows it won't be able to undo. I hadn't planned on going over there. I hadn't mapped out a speech or written anything down. I just got in my car, turned onto the old highway toward my parents' house, and drove like I was following the weight in my chest more than the road signs. The neighborhood hadn't changed much since I was a teenager. Same cracked sidewalks, same rose bushes that always bloomed too early, same lazy rhythm of small-town life that seemed immune to time. But I had changed. God, had I changed. When I pulled into their driveway, I saw Josh's old pickup parked along the curb. The same one Dad gave him at 22, the one they swore they couldn't afford to give me when I needed help getting to grad school. It was rustier now, the bumper half-hanging, one of the side mirrors duct-taped like a bandage over a bad decision. I sat in my car for a long minute, just staring at that house, the brick one-story with the chipped shutters and wind chimes that had annoyed me since childhood. I almost left. But then I remembered how silence hadn't fixed anything, and some things I finally decided deserved to be said out loud, if not for them, then at least for me. Janice opened the door before I could even knock, like she'd been watching from the window. Her eyes lit up like she was relieved, like the months of my silence had all just been some test she was waiting for me to finish failing. "Oh, Carly, thank God," she whispered, stepping aside, arms already reaching for a hug I didn't return. "I've been praying you'd come around." Inside, Dad sat in his usual chair, TV muted, hands folded like a teenager caught in the principal's office. Josh leaned against the kitchen counter, looking down at his phone, trying too hard to act like my presence didn't rattle him. The air in the room was thick with unspoken tension, and for once, none of them rushed to fill it. I walked in, stood near the fireplace where the same family photos had hung for decades, and said the words that had been living in my throat for far too long. "I'm not here to hug it out," I said, and Janice's face fell just enough for me to see the crack behind her carefully applied guilt. "I'm not here for closure or forgiveness, or to make peace with people who haven't once asked what peace would look like for me." Dad opened his mouth, then closed it again. Janice cleared her throat like she was preparing for a church recital. Josh didn't even look up. "You've spent years," I continued, voice calm but steel-edged, treating me like the backup generator. Like the one who's supposed to show up when things break, but never meant to be seen when everything's running fine. "You act like my hurt is some burden, like my silence is cruelty, but it's not. It's the only language you ever taught me to speak when I wasn't being useful." Janice stepped forward, eyes already glassy, voice cracking into familiar territory. "You've always been so dramatic, Carly. Always so sensitive. You hold on to things that aren't even about you." And that was it. That was the sentence. The one that finally turned the last switch inside me, because it was always like that. My feelings were inconvenient. My reactions overblown. My pain something they tried to tidy up with eye rolls and half-hearted apologies that came decades too late. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I handed it to Janice without a word. She looked down at it, confusion tightening her brow, and slowly began to read. It was a printout of a GoFundMe page. "Help Josh recover from his accident. Medical bills are piling up." They were asking for $10,000. Mom had posted the link on Facebook with a caption that read, "Even strong families sometimes need a little help. Please share." Janice looked up at me, lips parting like she was about to explain it away, justify it, spin it into something noble. I cut her off. "I saw it 2 days ago," I said. "And I made a donation." Dad's head jerked toward me, eyes narrowing. "You did?" he asked, confusion mixing with suspicion. I nodded. $5,000. Janice gasped, hand flying to her chest like I'd stabbed her. "Carly," she whispered, stunned, that's half the goal." I smiled then. Not cruelly, not smugly. Just that calm, unbothered kind of smile that only comes when you know exactly what you're doing. "But I didn't use my name," I said, watching her carefully. "You'll see it listed as, 'Grown-ups need therapy, not motorcycles.'" The silence that followed was thick enough to chew. Josh looked up, finally. His face flushed red, jaw clenching like he wanted to snap something but knew better than to test me. Dad stood slowly, but didn't say anything. Janice looked like she wanted to cry again, but it wouldn't come this time. I didn't wait for a response. I turned toward the door, keys already in hand. "Wait," Janice called out, her voice almost childlike. "Why would you do that and then still walk away?" I paused, not turning around. "Because I needed you to feel it," I said. "To feel what it's like to receive something unexpected. To be shown grace when you haven't earned it. I needed you to sit with it. That's not revenge. That's closure." And then, quietly, I added, "You raised me, but you didn't know me." I left the house with no more words, no hugs, no promises. The wind had picked up again, sharp and dry, brushing my face like the world was giving me a clean goodbye. As I drove away, I felt something lift. Not relief, not triumph, just a release. Like a weight I'd been carrying for so long had finally decided it no longer belonged to me. I didn't burn the bridge. I just finally noticed it was never built strong enough to carry me anyway. And still, I haven't blocked them. My number's open. Not because I want them back in, but because I don't need to shut the door to feel free. Sometimes cutting someone off isn't revenge. It's finally choosing yourself.